Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the latest episode of Not Quite Strangers. This podcast is an opportunity to bring people together who may or may not know one another. And hopefully in the conversation that we have and in the conversation that you hear, we inspire curiosity, we learn how to shift our perspectives, and ultimately establish a connection between all of us. And so I'm excited that every opportunity that I have to meet new people, more than anything, the impact that it has on my guests, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. If you're not already subscribed to receive these episodes in your mailbox, feel free to go to notquitestrangers.com and make sure that you click subscribe. You can also go to my YouTube channel, or if you'd like to get on the mailing list, when you subscribe, we'll make sure that we get something to your inbox every day. And you can listen to us on all sorts of platforms. Make sure you favorite us, and you'll get notified by those platforms whenever a new episode is ready. You don't want to miss a single one. And this is a very special episode. It's like a reunion episode, I believe, because here I have two amazing women who I've had the pleasure of knowing for, oh my goodness, 8+ years, maybe, or so. It's been a while. So I'll start with Maureen. Maureen, you and I, did we meet in Chile or in Costa Rica? I don't remember.
I think that it was in Costa Rica.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or in Mexico City. Remember with the gem training or something like that.
Was that the first time?
Oh my
goodness.
I think so. That was the first time, and then we met again in Costa Rica.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is a very international friendship. So we met, so both of us worked for Hyatt at the time, and we went to do some training in Mexico City, and that's where we first happened to meet. But then when you were in Costa Rica at where Andas Papagayo, I think.
Andas Papagayo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were the food and beverage director. And one of the things I remember about you, Maureen, and that struck me, first of all, is just the level of energy that you have. I mean, anyone that works in food and beverage, first of all, has to have tons of energy. That's not unusual, but how warm and hospitable you are, and also open. You took such good care of me. Every time I came to property, I knew that I was going to have like a 10+ experience whenever I went. But and always happened every time I went there to visit and do a property visit, you and I would end up having these really deep conversations. Exactly. But like on my last day, it was like, I'm having breakfast and I go to the airport, and then here's Maureen, and we're like, oh my gosh, and then life, and then family.
That's correct.
It always had this deep like right before I left. It was so
and you know what? Well, actually, you helped me a lot to take some important decisions as well during those conversations. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to know more.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, you're going to tell us in a moment what some of those important decisions were. But I want to introduce my second guest here, Tami Lee. And Tami, you and I go back to Chile for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what was fascinating is, and there's a connection between the two of you, obviously, already. But what was interesting, Tami, is that I went to Chile initially to support the hotel where your husband was the general manager, Mark. And I ended up being Mark's coach. I was his leadership coach for some time. And you guys were, again, hospitality runs through any of these guests, I guess, because you would invite us to your home, or I guess Mark would invite us to your home, and you would prepare these really lavish, very, I say lavish because of the time and the plating. Everything was so wonderful. It was so warm. I remember you and I talked a little bit during those interactions, but nothing really, I don't say profound, because usually there's a lot of other people. Then when you were working on getting your coaching certification, Mark was telling me about that. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I'd like to get coached. And then you became my coach. And then that's how you and I established this friendship. And I have not spoken to Mark since. So I don't know where maybe I spoke to him like maybe 1 or 2 times, but he and I spoke so regularly, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I talk to Tami. So all of us are now connected because I'm Marine's coach, Tami was my coach. And then tell us how the two of you know each other.
From Grand Hyatt Santiago.
Say more,
Exactly.
say more. Tell the audience how you guys met or what was the connection there?
Well, Mark, my husband, was the general manager there, and Maureen was part of his amazing team at that time.
Actually, Mark was my food and beverage director first. So I worked with him like 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
We never met in Santiago then, Maureen. No,
definitely not.
Okay, you weren't there at all during that time. Okay, got it. And then interesting. And so tell the audience, where are you now and how you got there? Like what took you to where you are now? So both of you.
Tami, go ahead. Do you want to go?
Sure. So we are currently in Berlin, Germany. We've been here for 6 years. We left Santiago, Chile, which was one of the last stop in a long road of living and traveling around the world in the hospitality industry. So Mark and I met while we were both in the hospitality industry. And together we traveled through North and Southeast Asia to Europe and then South America and India, and Santiago was our last stop. So we moved from Santiago to Chile with 2 young children, a dog, and moved here to Berlin and settled here. And now we are actually working on our own hospitality, intergenerational wellness concept north of Berlin called the Schlossgut Finnefort.
Schlossgut Finnefort.
Yeah.
Ooh, I remember your dog Saba.
Mm.
Is Saba still with us?
Unfortunately not. Saba turned 16 and a half and his age was catching up with him. So he's no longer with us.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. And Maureen, what would you add to the where you are and how you got there?
Actually, I am in Brazil right now. This is pretty much my 5th property. I'm still working with Hyatt. And before that, I was in Chile for a year, of course, because of the pandemic. Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm in Brazil right now. I'm in the hotel still. And I've been here for almost a year.
Almost a year. Oh
in my second journey, actually, because I was before like 8 or 7, 8 before.
7 or 8 years ago, you were in Brazil. Yeah. Oh wow. Okay, so this is part 2.
That was my first time in Brazil.
Ah. First of all, I'm so grateful the two of you came to be a part of this show because we have a lot to talk about and catch up. You haven't seen each other in 8+ years, I imagine more.
I think that more, Tami, right? Maybe 9 or 10 years.
I'm trying to think. I, for some reason, think that you were still there when we were in Santiago the second time. But now that you're telling the dates, we met you on our first time in Santiago.
Exactly. I was part of the team when we received you at the hotel for the first time.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that was because that Mark was my FME director. And then I think you left. I don't remember exactly the where you were, but then you came back. But when you came back, I wasn't there anymore. I was here in Brazil at that time.
Okay. So then it's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably 9 years ago could be.
You look exactly the same.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good. I'm happy to hear that
one. Exactly the same.
You too as well.
So I'm first of all, I always like to ask my guests, why did you say yes to being on the podcast? And I know that when Maureen, you found out I was introducing you to Tami, you're like, but I already know her. Well, I mean, it's 10 years now that we discover, but
Exactly.
besides the fact that I invited you to do this, why did you say yes to being on a podcast to have a conversation? And I know this is the first time for both of you, so why?
For me, I think, because I didn't even know it was going to be Maureen, that the opportunity to connect with people on a deeper level is really important to me. And what transpires in the sharing of it really gives me another level of energy that I love to embrace, for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
And even the fact that we're going from Germany to, America to Brazil, it's really, the world is so small, and our similarities are probably a lot stronger than we actually think, despite the thousands of miles between all of us right now. Yeah.
Ah, beautifully said. Maureen, why did you say yes?
Well, I was always watching all the videos all these kind of podcasts in LinkedIn, and I'm always, when I was watching, I was asking me like, oh, so it could be sometime that I will be able to do this one, because I'm not really expert in these kind of things. This is my first time, and then when you invite me, also I was wondering if I could be the one to do it. So that was the first reason. And the second one, it's because watching one of your podcasts before, I was so excited to see the connection in people as well, and as well as Tami, sorry. I really like that kind of things, connect to other people, and met somebody else, and I was so excited. I don't even know that we will talking with Tami, but I'm so excited to have her here, because it's long time ago that we didn't chat, so it's good. Happy.
Good. Well, I'm grateful you both said yes. And so let's talk about this deeper connection, because really one of the key topics that popped up in my mind when I started thinking about introducing the two of you on the podcast, or bringing the two of you to the podcast, was that you both have a shared experience in your health dealing with cancer, for example. And so I don't know how much of it you want to share. You're open to sharing. I don't know if you know that about each other, but I'm curious about. Oh, you didn't know that about each other?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Let's start there. So what would you share with one another about that experience?
So Maureen, when did you have cancer?
5 years ago. I was in Costa Rica at that time. Yeah, 5 years ago. And what about you?
In 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and how was your process?
I think you are always really surprised. Although cancer is in my family, on both sides of the family, my father's side and my mother's side, but we live a pretty healthy life, right? With
I remember
diet and exercise and all of that. So to actually be diagnosed with cancer is obviously was a big surprise. I think it is to anybody. But it also was an opportunity to look at cancer very differently. I often hear the words, the war against cancer, right? And I think the wording in itself tells you a lot about where you stand when you have cancer, right? And I don't think I ever thought about my war with cancer, but I've always said it's my dance with cancer.
Because?
Because I think when you say it's a war, it automatically comes up with negativity, and this was actually one of my questions for you, Maureen, was like, so I think when significant events happen in our lives, such as cancer, it provides us with an opportunity to look deeper into things, and to do things differently. Obviously, besides the physical things that happen to you, and I don't know what treatments that you did or what road you chose to go down, but how has the cancer created a shift in your life, right? And for me, cancer was an opportunity to really look at health and healthcare very holistically. And being thankful that we are in Germany, having the opportunity to do that in this type of environment where various types of medicine are very well received, so your options are varied. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me. When I got cancer, I was coming from a very complicated year because I lost my older brother with cancer as well. I come in too with a family with a very bad cancer history. My mom died when I was 12 years old, and as I say, my older brother died 1 year before I got cancer, and it was a very difficult year for me at that time. So after all the diagnostic and conversation with the doctors, I was the one thinking that it was because I was in a big sadness. One of the big reason because I got it. Yeah. So it was, as you say, it was a very big surprise, because even you living with the cancer history in your life, in my case, I never thought that it was something that I'm gonna get, because I was always thinking, I believe that I was so strong, and then I got sick, and it was very, very difficult, because I think that, I don't know if that's happened to you, but it was like I have to take a time to really understand what I got. Because I know everybody told me, the doctor said that I was with cancer. He gave me the diagnostic as well, but something in my head was like, no, but it's fine, but it's not. I mean, so I took time to process that. And I think that I was very lucky, I say, because my cancer was at the first stage. But even though I have had a big surgery, I have a bilateral mastectomy. So my process was with the cancer at the beginning, but was more after that, because I spent almost 8 or a year trying to get to recover of that.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. I've not had an experience with cancer that the two of you have had, but I remember both having conversations with both of you during the time that you were, you know, in dealing with your treatment and your experiences. And you're kind of going back to the question that you asked, Tami, about like what it does for you, how it shifts who you are, how you see the world, how you see your life. So I'm curious about what impact did you see it have on others, on the relationship that you have with other people? For both of you.
Okay. Well, for me was it's especially with your close family. I think I remember my husband and my daughter were trying to be very strong for me in order I can be good, but many times I was the one thinking or feeling that they don't really understand what is happening to me or what was my feeling at that time. So it was, at the beginning, it was for me, kind of that situation with them, especially with my husband and my daughter. They were always super positive, and even when we didn't know what is going to happen, but I remember that feeling, to be the ones that everybody were there for me, very strong for me, but my feeling was more than they didn't understand really what was I feeling at the time.
Got that. So they didn't really
I
get
don't
it.
know, I don't know, Tami, what about you?
I think what you said is true. I think you can never really understand physically, cognitively, emotionally, where another person is unless you've actually been in their shoes, right? And I think it's exactly the same. And I think your family always, obviously, they're scared and for you, and they want to support you and all of that. I think for myself, it was really important for me to be really honest with the two girls. And at that time, one was 10 and another one was 12. So they're still fairly young. And to be really honest about it as well, so that, they're free to ask questions, that there's no mystery behind that. And I think also from a culture point of view, that is very, very different, where, you may share some information, but you may not share all the information. And I think if you're not really truly honest and authentic with information, I think that's not the right thing either. I think for me, the mindset of how I accepted cancer in my life was also very important, that I didn't want to be identified as the person with cancer. Yes, I am Tami and I have cancer, but it wasn't all about the cancer, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I'm still a person first, and I still have feelings, and the sickness is just part of the journey more than anything else. I think one of the things about relationships that was the biggest one was I didn't tell my mother, right, that I was sick. And that was not from trying to withhold information, but it was more of being protective of her. I know that she would be the type who worries, and she had cancer herself. And I honestly think that her worry and the stress in her life was part of the reason why she got cancer. And I just knew in the timing of her life that telling her if I actually had cancer would not be a good thing for her.
Wow. What was that like for you, Tami? And you and I have had some conversations, but I'm curious, what was it like for you to hold that and interact with your relatives or your siblings and your mom and everyone, and not share that with them? What was that like for you?
I think it was also really complicated because during that time that I was sick, and then kind of COVID kind of crept in, right? So it was limited on how you can interact anyways, right? So obviously I didn't travel back to my home country, Canada, and I didn't see my parents and all of that. So that made it a little bit more strange, I think. I think if you actually had physical contact, it would be a little bit different, I think. It was all virtual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fascinating. Both of you have kind of given a hint to how you chose to approach when you got the diagnosis, right? And you said, Tami, the fact that you're in Germany gave you access to a lot of different modalities to handle it. Maureen, you said that you really took time to understand what it meant for you and how it could be linked to the sadness you felt for your brother. So I'm curious about, how did you go about choosing? And by the way, I want to be responsible that this is not by any means medical advice. No one is saying, if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, but Tami told us to. Maureen said, nope, please. That's not how it's happening here. But in the spirit of sharing with each other your experience and kind of unpacking for us, how did you go about addressing the illness at the time you were diagnosed, or once you did your research or whatever? How did you decide how you were going to handle it? Maureen, you can start if you want.
Okay. You mean in terms of the medicine, in terms of the doctors?
Yeah, or any aspect that you decided to treat, or to make yourself feel better.
Yeah. Okay. So when I start thinking that it will be probably I have cancer, I had a friend, a Costa Rican friend at the time, and she got cancer as well. So one day we were having this conversation, and she said, I gave him some example of the thing that I have it, and she said to me, yeah, you definitely have to go to a doctor because I think that is cancer. She said that to me before I got all the information, and that was the reason, because I was start thinking that probably I was the one having. So
wait, so hang on a second, Maureen. So you're saying that you had some awareness or sensations that you shared with your friend, and then she said that sounds like it could be cancer. Go get it checked out.
Kind of. My cancer started with the skin, in the skin. So I was having at that time some scratches. I have some hurts. So I can look at it at that time. Mm-hmm. So I was having that conversation with her, and then she said that is not normal, and I was with that for almost 7 months before I got the right diagnostic. So she was the one telling me at that time to visit one specific doctor, because she said that he was the one helped her with her process, and that was the reason because I went there with him. And for me, that I think that he was a very important piece in my whole process, because well, at the beginning he was it was very difficult, because I remember him saying like, okay, yeah, you have cancer, and now everything is going to depend of how many other part of your body it's having the same.
It spreads.
So, exactly. So what was the first conversation? The percentage of life that you're gonna get, it's going to depend of how many part of your body is with cancer as well. Okay. So at the beginning it was very difficult, because when you have to trying to process that, then you have that feeling that you have something very complicated. It's not just like a cold, like a flu or something like that. That was at the beginning, but then he changed a lot in his behavior with me, and he was the one carrying me for the whole process. And until now, I have other doctors, but I'm always one time in a year, I'm going to visit him in Costa Rica, because he was the one explaining me everything and being very clear, very transparent. And my feeling with him was that feeling that I was safe with him. I don't know why at that time, but that was my feeling. And this is some connection that I cannot even forget,
Feeling safe.
And as well as Tami said, I was very blessed that I was in that country, and I was with a good insurance as well, because otherwise it will be very complicated. So yeah.
Tami, I'm watching your face as you're listening to Maureen. I'm curious, what is happening in your head there? What are you thinking, feeling as you listen to her?
I think it's really curious that this person knew. right?
Yeah.
She had that intuition, the strength of the intuition.
Exactly. Yeah,
to share
and
with you.
I remember I was running at that moment with her, and in our running, I was telling, you know what, I'm having this, and you know, the doctor said that it is something like something allergic in the skin or something like that, and she said, she stopped and she said, oh, well, no, that is not that one. It's very weird you having that something allergic there. How can the doctor say that to you? And then she said, no, I'm going to call my doctor. And she called him, actually. She called him and said, hey, I have my friend here and she has this. And he answered her like, okay, tell her to come like 2 or 3 days after. And then I went. I think that she was very important at the process as well, because probably if I didn't have that conversation with her, I was maybe still thinking that it was something allergic, you know, something like something normal.
Yeah. But I think another key piece of this was that you embraced the situation. And I know, having conversations with people who've either have been diagnosed or there's something wrong with them. And sometimes when you just say, oh, maybe you should get that checked out, or that doesn't sound right. Some people take it on and some people push back, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's fear-driven or other reasons, not everybody is open to receiving that type of feedback or information. But you did, which is really important, right?
Yeah. I think that it was more because my history, right? My mother, as I said before, she died with cancer. And I was 12 years old at that time. So I was the one seeing her process as well. Mm. So immediately when she said something like that, my friend, I was the one remember the past with her. Mm. So I think that the history with that kind of things as well also give you some I don't know how to say, some structure to understand what somebody say, hey, no, look, is something weird here. It's not like. And when she said that also, I think that I felt it, like, you know, when somebody's telling you something, and when you have got that feeling that she's completely right, something is wrong with me, this is something that is happening. I had that feeling with me. I didn't knew at that time, I didn't confirm, but when she said that, immediately I was thinking like, yeah, I think that she's completely right. I have that.
And hey, Tami, I'm curious about, you mentioned you had the access to a lot of different types of modalities, specifically holistic. Like, what had you decide that was a path? You know, there's so much that one hears about cancer, at least in my experience, you hear so much about cancer, and, you know, radiation, chemotherapy are the two like biggest, at least from what I understand, ways to treat it. But it sounds like you went beyond some of the standard care practice, I guess. How did you go about deciding that was the path for you?
I was diagnosed in a very traditional hospital, a Western medical facility. And quite interesting, like the whole homeopathic, naturopathic path that we had taken started in Santiago with our first child. Our eldest child had really bad eczema and dermatitis when she was 6 months old. And Mark had found this homeopathic doctor that was just absolutely amazing. And the reason why we did that was because the traditional doctors said cortisone. And we said, are you crazy? Our child's 6 months old. We're not doing cortisone. So the more that we found out about the homeopathic route, we really embraced it. And it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes persistence, but the persistence paid off. And I could only imagine what our daughter's life would be like if we didn't go the homeopathic route and she had cortisone and all those really harsh chemical creams in her life, right? And also when we came to Berlin, we got just this fantastic naturopath. So homeopathic and naturopathic have been a part of our lives for the last 10 to 15 years anyways. But when I was diagnosed with cancer in the traditional hospital, my naturopath actually gave us a book about Max Gerson. And he was a German who had cancer, and he really was about the therapy of juicing, as well as coffee enemas, and approaching it in a different way. And I had to make the decision of whether I would go more traditional chemotherapy and radiation route, or I had heard that people chose to go completely naturopathic. I think at the time, because of the age of the two girls, Soraya and Talia, I said, yes, I would do the chemo and the radiation, but I wanted to integrate other forms into my healthcare. Now, thankful that I was in Germany. I am in Germany for that, because I managed to find a great anthroposophic hospital. Just
anthroposophic. What is that?
So it's the more naturalistic, holistic form of looking at healthcare. The hospital is particularly known for natural childbirth, and also looking at more than just the chemo or the radiation. Yes, you can get the chemo and the radiation therapy there, but things like art is part of the healing process. So another example is when I actually did the chemo, I was not sitting in a sterile white room, but I was in sort of a lounge area looking, or sat out on the patio with other people getting the chemo. So I was looking into a forest as opposed to looking into a hospital room. When I went for the lumpectomy from the surgery, somebody came in and played the harp, as part of the music for your healing, or they believed in lavender and the healing part of lavender, to have a lavender foot bath. All of that is a holistic view of looking at your healthcare. Also, I had found somebody in Berlin, ironically, had a connection to my home city, Vancouver, and his approach was like TMC, Chinese traditional medicine, is you don't really look at the problem where the cancer is, but you look at your whole body as a whole, right? So not only do you have the problem with the cancer, but you really need to make sure that your immune system is taken care of, right? And then you need to compensate for if you're having the chemo or the radiation. So for me, I did 72 hours of fasting before the chemo, and then 24 hours fasting after, but did a lot of things like liver cleansing, kidney cleansing, colonal cleansing, to get rid of all the things that happen with all the chemo and everything like that. And obviously changes in diet, things like meditation. I did yoga, so as well as more yoga. So looking at different ways of healing from a holistic entire body perspective, but also from a mental and physical perspective as well.
That is holistic. That is literally everything.
Yeah, you know what, I'm learning, and I didn't never hear something like that, but it's perfect. I was thinking, in my time when I got it, if I have that opportunity to have that one, could be help me a lot as well. So it's amazing.
One thing we didn't discuss, and that may be for another conversation for sure, but is the role that culture plays and how you chose to address, the cancer or the health. Because you talked about, Tami, you talked about Germany a lot and how kind of the medical landscape there allowed you. Maureen, you talked about Costa Rica, but the two of you are not from these places.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I wonder what they would have done in Chile, or I wonder what they would have done in Vancouver, Canada. Like if the place where you lived had anything to do with how you went about it. Make sense?
Yeah.
It does, definitely.
Really?
Definitely. But I think there's a bigger, deeper dive in that too, right?
Okay.
Because I always thought if we were in Chile, I would always question the healthcare, because we have really good public healthcare here, which a lot of it was covered. All my chemo and radiation was covered, right? But in Santiago, since good healthcare is private, you would always question, do I really need to have this treatment, or is it because they make more money?
Or probably they didn't tell that one to you.
Yeah, exactly. So
actually,
then there's always
I'm not sure if Chile have that.
Right.
So we didn't even have an option.
Yeah, and I think luckily being in Germany that you have all these different natural options as well. But I think, so then you have the question about culture in where you are for the treatment, but what about the culture within us, right? So being Asian, right? You suppress things, you don't talk about things, right? It's very cultural that you don't dive deep into sharing and all of that. A lot of it is kept below, right? Oh, and for whatever reason, you shouldn't really let the kids know. We shouldn't really, share that or whatever, right? But is that part of it as well, right? Keeping things calm, keeping things at bay, swallowing it, right? I'm sure that plays a huge role in it.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Fascinating. How are you guys now? What's the status now of your health?
I'm good. I didn't, as I said before, I didn't got the chemotherapy because I took a very drastic decision, because I took the decision to remove everything. That's why I got the mastectomy. Even the sicknesses, it was in one. Because of my mom history, I decided to remove everything. I'm okay. I have the period exams all the time. I didn't have it again. But I have to change many things in my regular life, as not similar to Tami, but for example, diet, things like that is something that I have to change in order to don't be sick again. It's just, to have that, to get the body healthy, to don't have that opportunity to have again. So I become vegan 5 years ago. This because of that, because of the cancer that I got, and I'm having like a plant-based diet, and it's been perfect for me at this time. So I'm good. I don't have to worry. I don't have that concern anymore. But I don't know if happened this with Tami, because I think that you have the ghost all the time. So when you got cancer, I think you always you are not thinking to have it again. You are thinking is something that can happen. Look, kind of you can be that person to have it again. So
that's what you've been thinking, Maureen, that you have that kind of the ghost of it.
Sometimes. So that's the reason, because the doctor, I take the exams every 6 months, to check up, to see if everything is good. And yeah, I'm in that kind of process, but I'm good.
Great. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think very similar, where I too still go for regular checkups. I still have meetings with my oncologist every 3 months, still go for the mammogram, the sonogram, blood test, and all of that, just to make sure things are okay. I think that I don't know if it was offered to you, Maureen, but here, because cancer was in my family, they offered to do genetic testing of probability as well, so that you can actually decide about, you know, what steps that you want to make as well. I think I found out that although cancer is very heavy on my mother's side, and also little less heavy, but still significant on my father's side. But just knowing that it wasn't genetic, I think was good, because you think of it differently, right? That, you know, if it was genetic, for me, would I have gotten just a lumpectomy as opposed to a mastectomy if it was genetic, right? And then they also know that uterine cancer and breast cancer are often quite common, right? So then you also know that other people maybe will have a hysterectomy to reduce the chances, right? So I think that was really good in the process of making those decisions for me. But I think it's always in your back of your mind at some point in time, right? I think two things that I know during the cancer that I look back upon now, of like having lower back pains or being so exhausted, right? And I think it was the cancer, right? So then there are times when, if I do have these lower back pains, or I'm physically so exhausted, I'm going, oh no, right? That always still pops up in my mind, right? Although, like you, I've gone vegan and I do the meditation and everything else, it's still something that's there.
A little voice, right? In
Yeah.
your mind saying like,
voice.
oh, yeah, you have it before, so just to be. That's happened to me all the time. You know, it's I don't know if everybody can see it like a negative thing, but my husband always said that to me, like, why you are thinking that you are gonna get again. And I say to him, like, it's not that. I'm not thinking that I'm going to have it again. It's just, you know, I want to be fast. I want to be fast. I want to be quick. I don't want to, if I have something, because it can happen, right? I have the opportunity to have time to know earlier, right? So that's the reason, because also I do the checkups all the time, and I do it frequently. I mean, every 6 months or something like that. But as you said, that voice is there. There is. I don't think that is. I don't know if there is a way that you and this happened to everyone to have cancer, but you have it, and you learn how to live and how to control it when the voice comes.
Absolutely.
You know, it's all everything that you guys are sharing. So my family, there is also a history, especially on my dad's side, I think colon cancer and prostate cancer. My grandmother, a couple of my uncles had it. So my dad is always very like, okay, make sure everybody gets checked. And my mom's like, have you had your mammogram? Like there's an awareness, right? And an interest in making sure. Thank God, not right now. My family, my parents and my brothers, you know, we're fine when it comes to that. But I think the caution, right? So there's the family history does influence quite a bit. You know, shifting gears a little bit with the two of you, this is probably the longest conversation I've had about cancer with people who have experienced it. I'm curious about, what is it like to talk about it? What's it like to share with somebody, whether it's a stranger or not, about your experience?
For me, I see it as if somebody, like, I'm not saying I'm me first, I'm not cancer first and then Tami, but I'm Tami who has had the dance with cancer. And I think it's like the same thing with Maureen, like, you know, are you ready? Like if Maureen wasn't ready to hear the information about, oh, we think that it could be breast cancer, go see my doctor, right? I see that a lot, where people are just either open and receptive to hear your story and to get whatever information that maybe resonates for them so they can integrate it in their journey. Or other people are quite the opposite. It's the holistic wellness and seeing your body as one is not shared by everybody, and that's okay too. But you get that sense right away where people are in that journey for themselves. So I think for me, it's like, yes, I would love to share the journey, because I think the more people can get from it, the journey that I've taken. And for me, it was a full-time job to do the research, to find the doctors, right? Mm-hmm. And if I could share that information, I'm more than happy to, right? But I also don't want to be somebody like, well, you know, you should be doing this, because I'm not that, and I don't want to be that. Everybody has to find their own path.
Their own.
Yeah.
Maureen, what about for you?
Yeah, I think that is pretty much like Tami. I think that I don't have a big challenge to share my history. You know what I mean? I think that and the ones that the most common when I have to explain, or when I have to talk about I have it, it's because everybody at the beginning asked me about why I'm vegan. That's the first question normally. And when I have to explain that one, I always said that is because I had breast cancer some years ago, and I just found that being plant-based diet can help to your body don't have that kind of inflammations. So in the way that I explained them at the beginning, I think that it is the way that Tami was saying, like, I don't want to be the one, oh, you know what, I have cancer and you don't have to do this, you don't have to eat this, you have to do sport, you have to be positive, you know. And I like to share it, because I think that as my example with my friend, if she didn't give me or share nothing with me, she didn't share her history, probably we didn't have that conversation. And sometimes when we are talking with another woman, probably that person is feeling or having the same things that I got, and that can be an alert. So I always been very, happy to share it. At the beginning, I was, I don't know, it's happened to Tami probably, yes. When you said that you had cancer, is something very, very strong. It's probably the other person, and it's going to look at you like, oh my God, she had cancer. I got those kind. So at the beginning it's not easier, but I decide to share it because I think that is very important. Many women can be having the same, and probably they didn't know. Yeah. And maybe that conversation can also help a lot to that person say, oh no, I have it the same. I'm gonna go to the doctor. I'm gonna go to make the exam, to check up, just in case, And
I think something important the two of you have both mentioned, and I think for anyone that's been listening and watching this podcast, is that to be open to share what's happening in your life with someone that you trust or someone that you now know can hear what you really have to say, but then also to notice what resonates. I think both of you expressed in different ways, hearing something or experiencing something and just exploring, does this resonate for me? Is this true for me? Is this something that's interesting to me? But you're so keenly aware of your reaction to whatever information or, you know, what your response to somebody's sharing something or something that you learned, that I think that's also a really wonderful message. And again, this conversation is not about giving anybody medical advice. We're not proposing that everyone become vegan or that you go have,
No.
you know, lavender foot baths or anything like that. I mean, those are all nice. In fact, I remember sitting next to this woman, you know, Maureen, you're asking about people asking you about being a vegan. I remember sitting next to this woman at a conference, and our meal was served, and it was this very nice meal with all these different types of, you know, interesting foods. And she would always ask, what's in this? And she kept asking these questions. And so I just kind of leaned over at one point and I said, hey, I noticed that you've asked a lot about some of the ingredients. I'm curious what's having you ask these questions? And she said, I've had cancer. And I'm very committed to ensuring that, you know, the changes that I made to my diet, even though I'm in a public space, that I'm able to honor them. And I was like, oh, and apparently she read this book called The Body by, I think it was like Bill Bryson or something. I don't know. I'll look it up. I'll put the notes in the thing. She said, apparently after reading that, she, like, not only with her diet, but her sleep, she's very disciplined about her movement and exercise. I mean, there's so many things that shifted. And she's like out there kicking it. I mean, I don't know where she's at. This was probably about 3 years ago before the pandemic, but she was very active in her life. She was very alive. So this is what I would ask the two of you now that you've gone through this journey, you both had your dances with cancer, right? So what are you committed to in your life now? Like, what does life look like, and the decisions that you make, and what you choose how you choose to spend your time, and your relationships, or any aspect of life that's important to you? What is it like today?
I think for me, I too have gone vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian. That wasn't a huge shift because Talia, our youngest daughter, is also vegetarian.
What's the name that you said? Oh, Talia and
Talia.
Okay, yeah, your daughters, yes.
And
they were vegetarian before you?
She was, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the shift in the diet, and I think that same thing where it's, you know, to be more alkaline than acidic is also very important, particularly to create the ambience in your body, right? To make sure that, because knowing that cancer thrives in acidic environments, right? I think the other thing is the mindset, trying to make sure that the mindset is in the right place with meditation, gratitude, breathing. So incorporating meditation in the morning and in the evening as well, and doing a gratitude practice in the morning before getting out of bed has been really, really important as well. And this is what I think for me right now is also exploring the cause of the cancer is a big one for me. And I think, like Maureen, you have said that we both have it in our genes, right, genetically, but I know that it wasn't the cause of that. And I do know that I originally, for the longest time, have said, you know, it was due to stress. It was an extremely stressful time in my life, right? And I thought that's the cause of cancer, right? But on that same breath and having certain conversations about but life and genetics and genetic history, questioning whether is there something more to that, right?
Like what?
Like you've said that, Maureen, that your mother had cancer, right? And my mother had cancer as well, right? And is there more to the history of our families that could also be a source of this?
Mhm.
I know, Valerie, I don't get this.
No, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So you're talking about this not in terms of some sort of like gene, like mutation or something that establishes, but there's some pattern or some, is it like an emotional thing? Like what exactly?
There are some significant event
Uh-huh.
or an anger or a hurt that gets carried from generation to generation.
Unhealed trauma.
Unhealed trauma that sits in us, that is either dormant, that comes out, and whether it comes out to present us with an opportunity to learn or to live differently, and for us to address it, right? I mean, I think I've told you, Val, like, I think for me to be very curious about the family constellations, right?
The what?
Family constellations.
Oh, family constellations, yes.
Right.
You might want to explain what that means, because people are like, what is that? And I don't remember.
So it's basically called, there is actually a series on Netflix called Another Self that talks about and has family constellations as a plot within some of the main characters. And it really is about how 3 women are going through significant events in their life. Ironically, the first person has cancer, and how she ends up going to this healing place, and the leader is really about doing family constellations. So it basically is about people that you don't even know taking part in something that has happened in your family's life, and these scenes are recreated.
Oh wow!
And it talks of, and things come out that people who participate have no idea why they said this or how they felt this, but they end up playing out these roles in the past that tell you something about something that's happened in your history.
Oh, that's
and understanding that can help you in the healing process.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this is, I mean, it's deep. It's deep.
I was thinking on that one as well. Yeah.
Okay, but I'll and also put the name of the show so that people can always go back and look at it. But yeah, it sounds like if there are people in our lives, whether or not they're related or not, who have had an opportunity to interact at some point in time with us, with our ancestors, right, with our family members, and those interactions have an impact on that person and I mean, I guess what you're saying is we're all connected, right? Because the moment that someone has an impact on your mom's experience, whatever happened to your mom will then be passed on to you, whether that's her knowledge, whether her reactions, whether it's her, right? Yeah. Woo. All right, Tami took it deep.
Yeah, like the question is like the cancer that I got, an expression of a pain that my mother had, that she also had cancer that she got from either her mother or her father. And then the question is that the importance of diving deeper into that, because I've got 2 girls. Right.
Yeah. I got that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one as well, and I had the same thinking of her. It was, you have to be good because you have another girl, and she can also have it. So one of the first things that I got when I was diagnosed and everything, the doctor said that to me. You have to do the gene exam because And I was, I didn't knew at that time. So he said, you have to do it. And I say, why? I mean, I have it cancer. My mom has, my brother has. So can be any possibility that I don't. And he said that to me. Yeah, but you have a daughter and she can have it. So you have to understand if you had that gene, depending on that is her situation. It will be her situation.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Has anybody read the Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now?
Yeah.
And so, is cancer a pain body? The Power of Now, yes. Right?
Is cancer a pain body? Oh, look, we could have a second or third episode.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I think that we have to have another conversation with Tami so she can explain all these deep things that we knew already.
Oh, I think it's fascinating because I think what the two of you are pointing to, not only is there a physical experience, right? And the healthcare systems that you both connected to address a lot of the physical experience, but it sounds like there's also an emotional experience to explore. There's a mental experience to explore. There's dynamics with other people to explore. And the two of you sound like has been a big motivation for it has been you have both of you have daughters that you also want to continue to share with and empower, right? And model, it sounds like model a way to stay healthy. Oh, well, I'm curious. I know, Maureen, you didn't get a chance to ask Tami any questions yet, so I'm curious. What are you curious?
I did some small ones.
Oh, you did some small ones. True, there was a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
So, where would you guys take this conversation now? We're kind of closing in on our time together, but if you were to continue this conversation beyond today, beyond this moment, what would you want to talk about, or what are you curious about that you haven't had a chance to discuss yet?
Well, for me, it'd be more understanding Tami's process, because I think every person has different process as well. And I think that when you connect with somebody who has pretty much the same thing that you can have many other conversations for many other things. So I think that I will be very interesting to understand her process, what is next for her, how is she looking her life in the future, because this is some of the questions that sometimes I have it, like, okay, what I'm gonna what I'm gonna do in the future, what I'm gonna do in 2 or 3 years. So I think that is something it will be good to know, having after conversations.
Tami, what about for you? What would you want to continue to discuss, or what haven't you asked that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think the ongoing conversation would be the regular checks with Maureen, not just the physical, but where and how are you doing with the spiritual, right? And how does that help you? And does it help you? I think dancing with cancer and surviving the dance with cancer really impacts your belief systems in yourself, and it really makes you feel and think differently. I think, yeah, to dive deeper into the emotional and spiritual well-being.
All right, I do have, okay, so since both of you kind of said this, I do want to ask this question then before we wrap up. Knowing that you're both dealing with what you've dealt with, you've gone through your process, you're both healthy now in terms of the cancer is no longer in your bodies, right? Kind of circling back to the question I asked earlier about your relationships, how has this experience for the two of you informed how you relate to other people? How do you connect to the people in your lives? how do you express yourself? Both of you are working women, right? You're both incredibly committed to the work that you do in the communities that you live in and the families that you're raising. So how does all of this experience now inform how you live with others and how you invest yourself or time with other people?
I think for myself, really making sure that I have time for myself. I think we as women get so caught up in being the mother, the caretaker of the home. I was the caretaker of the dog, working full time, being the chef, you know, being the doctor at home, whatever, right? And I always came in at the bottom, right? Mm. And physically, mentally, and spiritually, that did not serve me well. And I now know that, right? I think living in the present is something that I'm working desperately to try to make sure is on the top of my mind. Balance, for sure. I think all of us have been in the hospitality industry. We know that we go into the office needing to accomplish 5 things, 10 things happen that are urgent. You never get the 5 done. It just builds up from day to day, right? So it's so easy for us to continue, right? And to set healthy boundaries of that, right? I know that I know I'm not the cancer, but I also need to be cognizant that I can't create the stress in the environment to allow the cancer to come back. Mm. Right?
Don't create the stress in the environment to allow it to come back. I got that.
And that for me is really, really important. Yeah, so living in the present and being conscious.
Maureen, you?
Yeah, for me, I think I am agree with Tami. For me, it's every day trying to be mentally strong to live the present. You know what I mean? It's I don't know, but I learned this other. I don't know if I'm gonna sounds the same in English, but I learned a phrase that I learned when I was very sick, and it was like one day by day. So I literally, no, I don't know, I'm not gonna say literally, but I'm living day by day. So I trying to keep my mind very strong, living definitely the present with the people that I have with me all the time, you know, using all the moments to join myself, because Tami said something very, very important. We all, when you learn that, you know that you coming first as well, and that balance, mental balance with the healthy balance as well. It's important to me.
So for you, it's all about is balance, is being good to yourself, and then being able to just take every day as it comes, day by day. But I'd like to ask this one last question for you to ask the audience, but to share with the audience. If you were to challenge the audience or invite the audience to do something as a result of this conversation that they've been present to, what would you each recommend, advise, challenge people to do?
My challenge would be, what emotion or pattern would you let go of that can allow, like, sort of very much like the pain body, right? What pain body do you need to let go of to live a healthier, happier life? Can you identify it?
You need to let go of. Okay. Thank you. Maureen, what about for you?
I'm trying to think in one. Mm. Yeah, I will challenge them to ask them, like, if they feel that they have the balance in your life today, and how, if they don't, how they can start, having it, like, for now. I think that after pandemic, everybody is working like, crazy, things going very fast, and that probably is not a very good thing to remember how important your balance is, how important it is to keep that, your mind, your health, your food. If you are doing exercise, that is something that I think somebody have to question it.
Mm. All right. Good challenges. They heard it here. Oh man, this has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for both of you for sharing so deeply with your experiences. I know it's not always easy, probably, to share some of the things that you shared with each other and with us and whoever has been listening. And I hope that those listening, I'll mention the resources that you both, and maybe if there's other things that you didn't share that you think would be good to advise other people to look into, the books, for example, or the shows. And I'll make those notes in the description so that people can research a little bit more. And just curious, how do you feel now? What are you taking away from this experience of not having seen each other after 10 years and then having a conversation about your health? What are you taking away from this conversation?
It was the connection, I think, despite, we so long ago that we've met and we've reunited, but we have gone through the same path, share a lot of similarities. And I don't know, for me, I think the word comfort comes to mind for some reason. It was an environment that it was very natural and open to share, and it was a safe place to share. And I feel connected.
Me too.
Awesome.
It's interesting how life is. We met many years ago, and we probably at that time shared things completely different, and 10 years after, we are sharing the same experience. So it's funny. It's funny, and I cannot be more happy to have this time. And same, I felt like we are safety to have this kind of conversation. So it's good.
That is interesting, that full circle, completely different conversations 10 years ago, and now very similar experiences 10 years later. That is lovely. I've so enjoyed all the examples that you shared, the process that you shared. I'm learning a lot. Some things resonate. And I know that hopefully there's people out there who are listening who will see a different perspective as a result. The two of you are such amazing, generous, loving, open-hearted human beings. I think that's the piece that really helps with the connection, right? Because some of this stuff is painful too, and can be very confronting. And both of you are like, bring it. Let's explore our family history. Let's see what my body can do. Like, lavender foot bath for everybody. That's what stuck with me, the lavender foot bath. But I am, again, so grateful for the time that you two spent. And I hope that you continue to have conversations. And the fact that all three of us in different parts of the world makes it all that more special. In fact, I thought I'd connect the three of us together because I have these earrings that I got from Chile, actually. I think they're Mapuche or something.
Yeah, that's right. And I am Chilean, so we have Chile all around the world here.
There's the connection.
Yeah.
Tami and I met in Chile. Maureen is from Chile. I'm wearing Chile. I'm like, bonded. Thanks you two very much. And those of you who tuned into this episode of Not Quite Strangers, thank you all for tuning in. And I hope that you do subscribe, like I mentioned. Make sure that you hit like or favorite us in your favorite podcast platform. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.